Fatal Fury City Duels is officially 1 month away from launch. Fatal Fury City Duels had an open beta test that ran from February 20th to the 25th. The beta test showed promise with the gameplay, music, and visuals, but was severely flawed in other categories. The online play was lackluster, with people suffering from one-sided rollback. The rooms did not work for many people, myself included. The menus were a complete disaster. Inputs were not responding as soon as the player pressed the button, but rather when the player released the button, similar to a negative edge input. With the announcement of an upcoming open beta that will be releasing in the upcoming days, it begs the question, can SNK fix all the issues with City of the Wolves in time? Let's find out. So let's get the most obvious and pressing issue out of the way first, which was definitely the online functionality of the game. Many people, myself included, dealt with a lot of problems when it came to the online functionality of this game, regardless of which region you're from. The first major issue is just the basic process of trying to find a match. It was simply taking way too long to find matches, regardless of which method you use, whether you use casual matches, ranked matches, and especially the lobbies, which was definitely the most inconsistent part of the matchmaking experience. While there were some people who said the lobbies worked perfectly fine for them and were the most common way for them to find matches, I've personally found lobbies to be the hardest way to find matches. Each and every time I made a lobby, it just straight up did not work. No matter how many times I made the lobby and made sure I gave out the proper room match code to my friends online, it just simply did not work when I made it. But for example, when I had a friend of mine make the room match instead and he made it with the exact same settings I made it with, somehow I was able to join his room match, but when he tried to join mine, it just didn't work. It didn't work with two separate friends I tried this with. I wish I had more friends I could have tried it with, but I only had two of them who were playing the game at the time, and it didn't work with either of them when I tried to make the room match. Another most pressing issue with City of the Wolves was definitely the menus. I could feel how sluggish and cumbersome it was to use the menus the moment I launched into the game. Now, I will say something positive about it is that I do like the kind of comic book overlay of the menus. I do like the music played in the menus, but that's kind of where all the positive stuff ends for the menus. Like I stated previously, when you press the button, it would not select any of the options, but rather when you let go of the button, it would come out. This makes it feel very sluggish to move through the menus. The sluggishness also carries over into selecting basically anything in the menu, whether you're selecting your character, whether you're selecting SPG. And for whatever reason, when you select SPG, you basically have to wait until the bar moves over and blinks white before you can move it again. I don't know why they chose this. I don't know if it's deliberate or whatever, but yeah, you basically have to wait for the SPG to move, glow white, and stay static before you can move it again. You cannot just move through it quickly like you could in the original game. I don't know why they chose this, but hopefully they fix this, because it just feels very cumbersome and it takes up time. Like when you're selecting the SPG right before a match, you want to select them, in case you want to change it or whatever, or you chose the wrong SPG, you want to change it quickly and promptly, and you can't really do it because you're forced to have to wait until it blinks white and then select it. So I don't like that change at all. I hope they fix that. And I didn't know if it was just me, or maybe it's because I was just trying to get adjusted to the feeling of the game, but I also noticed there was definitely caked in input delay even when you were playing offline. The closest thing to offline mode was the training mode. Even in the training mode, I felt some input delay. At first, I thought I was just tripping and that this was simply just me adjusting to a completely different game, but no, there was other people such as Maximilian Dude who stated that compared to earlier builds that he played, that this game definitely has more input delay.
Game had a little bit more input delay, even offline. So I was like, the overall feel of the game did not feel the same that I remember back in the playable moments at EVO and Summer Games Fest. I was like, this is weird, but it could be chalked up to several things.
His theory about it, Maximilian's theory about it is that they probably added more input delay, to factor in with the net code. But honestly, I'm not really, even if that was the reason, I'm not a big fan of that reason, and I hope that for the final release they lowered the input delay, because I could definitely feel it. I eventually adjusted to it and was able to play the game fine, but when I first played it, it definitely felt rough and it felt like I was playing underwater, which I did not like that feeling at all. Another glaring issue you can instantly notice if you pay attention to the gameplay footage is the absurdly long loading times between rounds. It will often take upwards of 5 to 10 seconds to load in between rounds. This is simply way too long to wait in between rounds, so I hope that SNK addresses this in the second beta test and that it's fixed by launch. My main concern when it comes to these kinds of issues, with the matchmaking and the menus and things like that, are not that SNK will not fix them, but how long it will take them to fix them. And that's always been really the issue with SNK. I will give them credit and say that with their games like King of Fighters 15 and Samurai Showdown, they did try to make improvements and fix the game, but a lot of those fixes came way too late into the game's lifespan, right? Things like the matchmaking being fixed took over a year for KOF 15 to get fixed, which is just ridiculous. Even games like Under Night and Birth, which had some kind of matchmaking or netcode issue. I don't know the exact details, but people said there was issues with Under Night and Birth's netcode or matchmaking, and they got that fixed within a week. But even just a week was enough to really damage the player base for the game. So imagine taking a year and a half, to fix this issue. And what makes it crazier with KOF 15, and I know it's a video about City of Wolves, but what makes it crazier is that game was released before Street Fighter 6 was announced and got fixed after Street Fighter 6 was released. That was the timeline for how long KOF 15's matchmaking persisted. And any game that has broken matchmaking is a dead game. People say just join a Discord server and find matches that way. That's not really a viable way to fix a community. It just isn't viable. If the game doesn't work, then that's it. And in the case of KOF 15, I don't even think it was a really good solution either, because the room matches in that game were inferior to KOF 14 lobbies, where you couldn't even have more than one match at a time, which is something that was remedied in City of the Wolves. But City of the Wolves room matches have another issue, where it forces you, regardless of if you're on console or PC, they force you to use a cursor to move over and select the character, but it's this really slow cursor. And if you're on PC, you can't even use a mouse to move the cursor, which is absurd. But honestly, I don't know why they did this. They should have just made it like normal, where you select it with like the D-pad and you just select it normally and then press the select button to enter a room, just like how Street Fighter 6 does it, just like how KOF 14 does it. I don't know why they went with this, especially since, like I said before, the cursor, you can't even use it on PC. You can't use your mouse to move the cursor, which is ridiculous. But then there are other issues that I feel like kind of slip under the rug, so the input delay I noted earlier hasn't really been talked about as much, but there's also the input delay, but there's also the stages themselves. I think the stages overall look fine. They look satisfactory. The NPCs could look like they could move a bit smoother. I would say that's like something that's disappointing. Like when you compare the way the NPCs move in this game to like Street Fighter 4, the Street Fighter 4 NPCs, although you notice they move at a slower frame rate, it's not to the point where it's really jarring. I feel like if you look too closely at the NPCs in City of the Wolves, it's very noticeable how janky they look when they move. But you can mostly gloss over that, but it gets really noticeable, particularly on the Freight Express train. When that train is moving, when you're moving alongside the train and you're seeing the background moving at a very slow pace, it's just very jarring and distracting. It just ruins the image, I would say. It ruins the presentation of the game. So I hope that they can fix the issues regarding the frame rate a little bit, maybe make the NPCs move a bit smoother, and especially fix that Freight Express train, because that looks rough. That stage looks rough when you're playing, especially online. Other issues I would say is regarding future content. When you look at the King of Fighters 15 and how that game handled its post-launch content, I feel like it was very underwhelming. When it comes to modern fighters, one of the most important things for a game's longevity is definitely post-launch content in the form of DLC through characters, stages, costumes, etc. Their last main entry, KOF 15, was pretty subpar when it came to additional support. The game only added DLC costumes for the DLC characters, but none for any of the other characters. This was a missed opportunity from SNK to make more money for the game, as well as getting fans more content to look forward to so that they want to play the game more. From what I can tell with City of the Wolves, I don't have a lot of confidence that things will be any different when it comes to costumes. Just look at the second costumes we have now. Only Mai and Terry have been shown so far to have any alternative costumes, and there's some definitely noticeable issues when it comes to these two costumes in the game. Mai's costume is only visible when you activate her Hidden Gear Super, and it clearly is just her KOF 15 costume ported over to City of the Wolves. Everything from her sash or her obi to the floral design of the back part of her kimono, this is a one-to-one port of her KOF 15 costume. In my honest opinion, this comes off as kind of lazy and cutting corners, which is a disappointment considering that this is supposed to be an older version of Mai. So to still see her wear the exact same red and white ninja garb that she's worn throughout the years, you know, it's kind of disappointing in my opinion. What would have been more interesting is if they had given her a new ninja outfit to go along with her new biker attire. Like if they gave her, let's say, a black ninja garb this time with a pink floral design, I think that would have been a lot more interesting and would match with her biker outfit. It had a brand new ninja costume that she changes into and stays in for the rest of the match, similar to how when you use Samus's final smash in Super Smash Bros. Brawl Onwards, you change into Zero Suit Samus. Mary's costume is also blatantly ripped straight out of KOF 15, with the only visible changes being that they changed the words on his hat from being Fatal Fury to Real Bout, but besides that, it's literally just his KOF 15 costume. To me, this is very disappointing, especially when you compare to what Capcom is doing with the SNK characters in that game and how much love and attention they're putting into those characters' moves and their designs, etc. And to see SNK cut corners, you know, with this new game, and if this is what they're doing with the costumes, you know, the secondary costumes they already have available right now, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence that they're going to add any more costumes in the future, especially with the recent leaks that have been released due to the data mining from the beta. Now, I'm not going to spoil, you know, anything like the, you know, season 2 DLC characters or anything like that, but I will say that throughout the entire, you know, leaks of the game, and there's a lot of stuff that was leaked, there was no mention of additional costumes, any future DLC costumes. So, you know, take that as you will. There's also an interview that Neo Geo Now, or Nabil, took with Joshua Weatherford and Yasuyuki Oda, you know, back like, I think it was like last year or somewhere around that, where he asks, you know, where he asks both Oda-san and Mr. Weatherford whether or not this game would have any additional costumes, and their response was just "Gambarimasu" or "We'll do our best."
But in terms of, are they plans to, for the roster, to all of them have, you know, alternate costumes?
頑張ります we'll try our best.
So basically, you know, that's kind of like an empty answer if you ask me, especially with, you know, the context of, you know, seeing the costumes as they are right now. Like you're reusing KOF 15 assets for Mai and Terry, and like I said, there was a lot of stuff that was leaked in that data mine, and there was no mention of additional costumes. So again, you know, cross your fingers, hope that there's something there, but so far there's no mention of DLC costumes whatsoever. So take that as you will. And I would just say, you know, that's kind of like the overall story of City of the Wolves. It seems like they're putting their focus on the wrong things, I would say. Like, they're definitely trying to put the game out there through advertising, through these collaborations with Cristiano Ronaldo and that boxing promotion. But it's like that money that you spent on those things, they could have been spent on the matchmaking. They could have been spent making more costumes for the additional characters. But you're using all that up, you know, for promotion, but not to better the game, you know what I mean? The game is like that close away from releasing. It is literally a month away from releasing, and people are not confident about this game, you know, when it comes to the overall product. When it comes to the gameplay, which I may talk about in a separate video, but the gameplay is by far the best thing about this game. No one's questioning that. If this game released in basically a good state, you know, because nothing's perfect, right? But you release the game in a good state, a functioning state, this could definitely go, you know, toe to toe with the other titles. I really believe that. SNK has something here. It finally took away like the top 3 spot, you know, and SNK being top 3 at EVO. You know, since when has that ever happened? I don't even know if that's ever happened, you know, as far as I know. You know, I know KOF 15 back in 2022 in its first EVO, I think it was number 5, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, KOF 15 was number 4 in registration, and you know, because of matchmaking issues, largely the matchmaking issues, it just kept decreasing after that. You know, this is like the first time this game is in the top 3, right? Like top 3, you know, it's dethroned like Guilty Gear Strive from that spot, which it's held, you know, since its release. It's been top 3. So people have an interest in this game. They're showing an interest in this game, and all SNK has to do, it's up to them to decide whether or not this game is going to be a success, right? All the cards are there. But if this game does not release in a functioning state, if the matchmaking's busted and you have to go on Discord or whatever to find matches, then this game's donezo. Like, it doesn't matter how good the gameplay is. You know, there might be players who will tolerate, you know, poor matchmaking. They'll tolerate, you know, poor menus and all this stuff. But the general audience is not going to tolerate that. Even like people who really like this game, they will just switch just back to Street Fighter 6 or Tekken 8 if the game doesn't function properly. You know, so for the health of this game, I sincerely hope that SNK fixed the game. You know, even with all the issues I stated previously, this is definitely a game I'm looking very forward to, and I'm eyeing that beta, man. As soon as that beta drops, I'm gonna be there day one streaming this game, and you know, seeing how it goes. You know, and I hope that for the best. You know, when it comes to the matchmaking, you know, based on a recent interview Yasuyuki Oda had, you know, apparently it's been addressed, it's been fixed. You know, we'll see how that goes. But when it comes to the menus, that's kind of like my main concern besides the matchmaking, is like those menus are like inherently ingrained in the game. The small lettering, the negative edge inputs, it's like I don't know how much of that you can fix in like a month's time or whatever. Like, that's a lot of stuff to fix in a month's time. But again, even if it, you know, let's hope, even if that doesn't get fixed right away, that at least gets fixed in a future patch, you know, relatively quickly. Because at least if the matchmaking works, I feel like maybe people can tolerate a little bit sluggishness in the menus. But that matchmaking straight up doesn't work, this game's just is gonna fall off real fast, you know, and that's a shame. You know, there's definitely been suggestions to delay the game due to these issues that were found in the first beta test. But I don't believe SNK is going to delay the game at all due to the game already being included in tournaments such as EVO 2025 and the Esports World Cup. So there's just too much banking on this game currently for SNK to delay the game. So I just hope that most of the important issues are at least addressed and fixed in this newest beta that will be releasing in 2 days. I really am out of stuff to fix in a month's time. But again, even if it, you know, let's hope, even if that doesn't get fixed right away, that at least gets fixed in a future patch, you know, relatively quickly. Because at least if the matchmaking works, I feel like maybe people can tolerate a little bit sluggishness in the menus. But if that matchmaking straight up doesn't work, this game's just is gonna fall off real fast, you know, and that's a shame. There's definitely been suggestions to delay the game due to these issues that were found in the first beta test. But I honestly don't believe SNK is going to. I don't believe SNK is going to delay the game at all due to the game already being included in tournaments such as EVO 2025 and the Esports World Cup. So there's just too much banking on this game currently for SNK to delay the game. So I just hope that most of the important issues are at least addressed and fixed in this newest beta that will be releasing in 2 days. I really am hoping for the best for this game. What do you guys think? Do you think SNK can fix Fatal Fury City to Wolves in time for its release? Let me know in the comment section below. Please share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.